Hello and welcome to the Tipsy Theory podcast. My name's Alicia.
And my name is Adrian.
And today we're going to be talking about a political issue that's tackling not only Canada, but also worldwide.
Yes, so our beloved Trudeau Liberal government here in Canada, as of last month, has declared a national climate emergency. We're going to break down what that actually means, if it warrants being an emergency of a national and political state, and break that down for you, discuss what the implications are, is it worthwhile, all that good stuff. But before we get into all that, let us talk about this podcast sponsor. If you are thinking about starting a business or growing an existing business that you may have, then a crucial part of your business plan should be marketing. And we have a tool for you that will help you communicate with your list better, collect email addresses so you can communicate better with your subscribers and all of that good stuff. They are Groundhog Marketing Automation for WordPress. You can head on over to groundhog.io right now and download their free marketing automation plugin for WordPress. This plugin will allow you to send emails, build a list, create automation, and do a whole ton of amazing things that will allow you to grow your business. So again, head on over to groundhog.io for more information on that. And Groundhog is spelled with 2 G's at the end. And let us talk about our drink of the week.
We don't have one.
Sure we do.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking espresso. What time is it? It's 9 p.m.
Yeah.
I'm drinking espresso with a hint of black or dark Sambuca.
And I'm drinking a Moscow Mule, which will be the third time that drink has been featured on this podcast.
Well, I mean, the vodka is still plentiful, so I don't think
we have a whole list of drinks that we're ready to try out. We just don't have the supplies for those quite yet.
No, but I digress. Okay, so moving on. Let us talk about our actual topic for this podcast. As we had mentioned just a little bit earlier, we are going to be talking about the Trudeau government national climate emergency. Why don't you break that down a little bit for us?
So Canada declared climate change as a national emergency more than a month ago. It was on June 17th, and the vote passed with 186 votes to 63. So it was a big majority that agreed with this.
All those 63 votes were conservative, most likely.
Well, yeah, don't worry. I'll get to that at my point.
We're going to get to that.
But yes, so it was passed, and Canada isn't the first place to do this. Recently, the United Kingdom has also declared climate change a national emergency about a month before we did. So it's starting to become a whole worldwide political phenomenon at this point. And basically, in case you're unaware of what this means, it doesn't mean that everything's going to change all at once. What it means is that every single political leader in Canada needs to acknowledge that climate change is real. That's one of the big keys to it. You also have to follow and agree to meet the Paris
So it's
Treaty
flag
agreements.
waving.
Essentially.
Virtue signaling.
Eventually. Yeah.
Essentially.
Essentially.
So it's essentially... okay. All right. Continue.
Well, yeah, that was...
That's it. Okay, that's the introduction.
That was my quick rundown. I don't want to get too much into it.
That's the introduction. So the things we're going to be covering today is why they actually went ahead and declared this national emergency, why we think they did that. There are lots of opinions on this, and we're going to share a few of the ones that we thought might be relevant with you. And then we are going to break down, is it actually justified for them to be able to go ahead and do this?
Now, one thing that I do want to mention prior to this is kind of how the national emergency came to be in Canada. It was originally put forward to the House of Commons by the Environment and Climate Change Minister, Catherine McKenna. And this was over 2 months ago. So this would have been back in early May when she decided to try and push this before they voted. And when CTV News interviewed her, one of her main points was that she was bringing this to Canada's attention to target Andrew Scheer and Doug Ford because they didn't believe that climate change was real. And if she did this, they would need to acknowledge it for future political references if Andrew Scheer held office or Ford in Ontario.
I don't know. Neither of those political parties, so neither the Doug Ford administration nor the Scheer administration, have denied the existence of climate change.
Well, they may not have said this directly out loud. This is what McKenna claims on CTV. And they have,
I think she's a bit biased.
Slightly shown it in their actions, though, to be fair, because this call came almost directly after Doug Ford made a public announcement that Ontario had done enough for climate change. He did not state that climate change wasn't real, but he did state that Ontario had done their part and they shouldn't have to do any more.
Well, according to the Paris Accord, so when Canada signed on to the Paris Accord, it basically...
The Paris Treaty Agreement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Paris Accords. So when they signed that, they essentially divvied up responsibility to the provinces. Obviously, bigger provinces had more responsibility. Ontario's responsibility was a reduction in carbon emissions by 30%. Not only is Ontario on track for that, they're actually ahead of schedule. So in the interest of the taxpayer...
Okay, fair. But at the same time, if this is something that you were truly worried about, you would, be moving forward with it, not just doing the bare minimum.
Well, again, as a government has to take into account both sides. They do work for the taxpayer, and there are certain considerations. Climate change is expensive. Carbon emissions, reducing carbon emissions is expensive. And if they're on track and they're actually ahead of schedule and they're really pulling their weight, do they essentially go above and beyond and spend more tax dollars essentially attacking this initiative? Or do they say, hey, listen, it's time for the rest of the country to step up and kind of like fill in the gaps here?
I mean, the rest of the country was stepping up as well. It's not just Ontario that's pulling the weight here. But basically, this isn't my point. This is how it was started. This is how McKenna decided that Canada should declare a national emergency, because if they did so, no political leader. I did not.
Not far off.
I did not mean for that to slip. But no political leader will be able to diminish the idea of climate change.
No,
is essentially what she's trying to do here. And while you can argue all you want that the Ford government didn't diminish it originally, a lot of people are arguing at the same time.
I didn't say that. I said deny it.
No, they didn't deny it, but they do, bare minimum isn't the best option when it comes to fighting together as a nation, essentially.
I'm not disputing that either. So we have a little bit of background information about why this came about. I think there are a few ulterior motives, regardless of just kind of saying, hey, Doug Ford, I think you should be really thinking about this. While yes, that may be one of her motives, I don't think it's the main one. I think the biggest motive is there is an election in October at the federal level.
Okay.
Where Justin Trudeau will probably lose.
So what does this have to do with climate change?
Well, I listen to 640 AM a lot, which is extremely biased to conservative
very,
views.
Very biased.
Yeah. It's
no
a global
offense to 640 at all, but
it is a global news radio station, and they do seem to have they have a panel that is in between the hours of 5:20 p.m. and 6 p.m. So they're on for about 40 minutes. And they have a conservative person, an NDP person, and a liberal person, generally representing and rounding out the panel.
Rounding out is in quotation marks, though.
And the conservatives out of those panels and out of those debates and discussions do tend to come out generally on top. So that I will not state that it is an unbiased and totally...
The thing is, though, with radio stations, it's very hard to find an unbiased. Everybody's biased.
At least they have the other opinions there. Right?
We have the other opinions here, too, but we're both still biased.
Yeah, so they have the other opinions. Anyway, point being is they often reference Ipsos polls. So if anybody knows what Ipsos polls are, or doesn't know what Ipsos polls are, rather, you've probably received a phone call that's like, do you think that climate change is, an important electoral thing this election season? And it's a robot voice, and it's like, type 2 to answer yes, type 1 to answer no. You've probably received a phone call like that. And if you haven't, don't worry, it's coming. So they essentially gather this information. They usually have sample sizes of maybe 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 people. And more often than not, the polls will show that an overwhelming majority of people think that climate change is a super huge issue and it should be addressed in any political agenda. So if you're running for office, you should have a climate action plan. That there is no debate that people think that climate change is a huge issue.
Which is new, actually, because if you remember last year, even just 300 days ago, people weren't really feeling climate change as much. People were still making excuses. But now it's kind of gotten to the point where people do believe that it's an issue.
Straws and turtles, man. Straws and turtles.
Yeah, that straw turtle meme literally blew everything out of the water, pun intended. And it changed the way that people viewed the issue. So now it's become more of a political stance than it was in the past because the people care now.
Absolutely. Part two, though, is an overwhelming majority of people during that same poll. So during the same phone call, the next question after, do you think climate change is a big issue? Question after that is, do you want to pay for it? So, and it wasn't asked like that. So the question wasn't actually that, but usually the question was phrased of, do you think that the carbon tax is a good idea?
Right.
And the overwhelming majority of answers to that was what?
No.
And it was no. People think that yes, it's a super huge issue, but when asked to actually shell out money from their taxes or whatever to actually pay for it, completely different 180 stance. Like yeah, it's a huge issue, but should I as a taxpayer be the one responsible? Yes, I drive a car, but in the overall grand scheme of things, is that really contributing all that much? And on a person by person basis, the people generally think no, and no, I don't have to pay for it. Where was I going with this?
So your point? Yeah, that's what I'm waiting for, is your point.
Where was I going with this? Where did I start out? Lead me back home here.
So I'm assuming the point you're trying to make here is that Justin Trudeau is declaring climate change as a national emergency.
Right. Yes.
Let me just help you with
Thank
your
you.
debate
Thank you. So all to say is that during this election season, in a bid to get some cheap political points, it would appear that the Liberal Party has decided, let's go ahead and we'll declare climate change a national emergency because that'll get everybody talking. Everybody can get behind Mother Earth. And, if we're the ones to do that, then we can be the ones who score political points for this action plan. And the polls show that an overwhelming majority of people support the political parties taking action on climate change. And better yet, our actual declaration of a national emergency will actually not change anything. There will be no policy, no legislation, no nothing. It'll simply be virtue signaling, and everybody can get behind virtue signaling if they don't have to pay for it.
The thing is, though, is there's a few counterpoints to that. There's a few. The first one I'm going to go with here is the most obvious, and it's the fact that Justin Trudeau declared climate change a national emergency to win over the tree huggers, if you will, to win over those people who believe that climate change is a massive deal.
Which is the majority of people. According to the polls.
I'm not denying that. But then the morning after, the vote happened Monday night, the morning after Justin Trudeau came on stage, whatever, made an announcement. He didn't go on stage. Made an announcement saying that he okayed the trans pipeline.
Well, the House voted on it.
Still.
They approved it.
Doesn't look good.
Well, not for him, no.
No. So the whole point of him declaring national emergency to get voters and then immediately flushing that down the toilet.
That's not necessarily a point against
also
him
voted,
virtue signaling. That's just poor timing on his part.
Poor PR. But the House also voted on national climate change. It doesn't the House voted on both.
Yeah, exactly, because the Liberals control the House.
I know that, but you're saying, well, the House voted on it for the trans pipeline, but it was the same for national emergency.
Yeah,
there was no different. Justin Trudeau didn't single-handedly declare climate change a national emergency.
No, but they're representative of his brand and of the Liberal Party.
Yeah, but they also approved the pipeline.
Yes, they did, but that just feeds into my second point. So,
well, I'm still not done.
Okay.
Because number 2, you bring up carbon tax.
Yes, I did bring up the carbon tax momentarily.
And your point was?
Well, my point was that it was to feed into the virtue signaling, because if the Trudeau Liberals came up with an action or decided to vote on a national emergency or a climate emergency, rather, but actually introduced legislation for anything that cost any form of money that would be spending taxpayer dollars, the people would revolt.
Here's the thing, though. The only reason why Canadians are so mad about the carbon tax, how much money it costs, is because Doug Ford is single-handedly marketing how much money it's costing Canadians.
Well, it's certainly hurting BC, and they certainly don't have a conservative government right now.
Where's the proof on carbon tax hurting BC right now?
Well, their gas is like $1.80 a liter.
They get it all back though in rebates.
Well, some of them get it back.
Where's your proof that they don't?
Well, if you just it's the mandated carbon tax, so they pay for it all back. So it was the same plan that they had here.
Yes, they get it back though.
Not if you're over like so
yes, but no normal household is over a certain level.
So the rich people can afford it is essentially what you're saying. So because the carbon tax here was essentially just a glorified form of wealth redistribution.
I'm just saying carbon tax doesn't affect the majority.
All right, well, we're not here to debate the carbon tax.
Middle class voters. Yeah, but your point is mute.
It's not mute because the majority of people didn't like the carbon tax. So
yes, but Andrew Scheer's platform is to introduce a carbon tax that actually works.
It's not a carbon tax. At least it's not a carbon tax that the taxpayer pays for.
It's still
directly anyway. But that again, that's not up for debate at the moment.
It totally is because your entire point is on the fact that
no, it's not.
It literally is.
It's really not.
Okay, you're just mad because I won the last one, so you can keep going.
Oh my god. All right. So let's just stay on focus here. The what we're talking about.
You're the one that brought up carbon tax.
Because people don't want to pay for it, which is why the climate emergency doesn't do anything except virtue signaling.
I understand that, but it doesn't get rid of carbon tax. Every other political leader is also thrown in some form of carbon tax or national emergency plan.
All right, so the perception of the carbon tax is different between what the Justin Trudeau Liberals are currently implementing or forcing to be implemented on the provinces, while the Andrew Scheer carbon platform is a little bit different, and where it.
I thought we weren't talking about the carbon plan.
Well, you're making me talk about it.
All I'm trying to say is that your point is moot.
It's not moot.
It is.
It's not.
Because every political standpoint is offering some form of carbon tax, climate emergency plan for the future elections. That's all I'm saying.
But they're not taxes. They're all climate plans, but they're not taxes. The conservative plan is not a tax that the taxpayer sees on their tax form that they have to submit to the government at the end of the fiscal year.
They're just doing the exact same thing, though, just taking the word tax out of it.
It's not the exact same thing.
Okay, whatever you say.
The Andrew Scheer platform is they are going to be directly going to large polluters.
Andrew Scheer has pledged to create a green home tax credit, which would allow Canadians to recoup 20% of what they spend to make their homes more energy efficient.
That's not a carbon tax. That is a tax credit.
I know, but carbon tax is the same thing. People still get their money back.
But they get charged up front for it. But not everybody. So depending on how much you actually make and how much you actually spend, some people end up actually spending more money towards the carbon tax.
Again, a very limited amount of few people who can afford it. Not the majority of voters who are mad about it.
What about everybody that lives in Toronto?
Nobody who lives... Are you affected by the carbon tax?
Yeah, I fucking pay for gas.
Yeah, so you spend so much money in gas that you're not going to get the rebate back?
I mean, it's 15 kilometers per 100 liters, so it's not... 15 liter per 100 kilometers. So, it's not great for me, to be completely honest.
Also, Andrew Scheer's plan is complete bullshit anyways, because it doesn't actually meet the Paris Treaty Agreement. But that's okay. Keep going. Let's just change topics on this because this isn't part of the actual debate.
Okay.
This can be a different debate.
Okay. So, again, my original point being that Trudeau and the Trudeau government passing this climate emergency is really just virtue signaling and cheap political points to essentially attract the voters with, look how green thumb we are. Because, and then again, they just turn around the next day and they try and have it both ways because they're super in trouble with the West because Alberta still doesn't have a pipeline.
He just approved that.
He just approved it the next day. So now he's trying to have it both ways. He's like, hey, listen, I have a super green thumb, but also Alberta, we care about you and you can have your pipeline now, even though we failed to get this done for 4 years.
So doesn't that kind of tear away your part that he did it to gain the green voters?
No, he totally did it to gain the green voters. I just hoped they wouldn't care or notice. Because he knows that at this point, it's so late in the game that it's not going to get built probably anyway.
So you're saying that the national emergency was declared just for Justin Trudeau's political agenda?
Yes.
Even though other nations have done it?
Yes.
Even though the entire world is hopping on board? And there is.
You have to admit the timing's peculiar.
But the timing's not peculiar because it's the same time where studies are showing that Canada is actually feeling the effects of climate change the worst.
That's due to our northern hemisphere's data. So I mean, it's hard to argue with that.
It isn't. So Canada is one of the places where there was a study done like a month ago around the same time that proved that Canada was heating up 3 times faster than like the rest of the world.
True.
So we're feeling these effects the most.
True.
We're the people who should be declaring a national emergency here.
True.
So it's a bit more than just Justin Trudeau's political agenda. Like, sure, that was probably in the back of his head being like, this might help me. But at the same time, it's at the point where Canada needs to take a step forward. They can't be the ones sitting on the backseat at this.
True. All good points. And
I'm also talking really fast because I'm very passionate about this topic. I write about this a lot, so I have like
all good points and all it's hard to argue with anything. However, there's some other evidence. Canada is not the world's largest polluter, and Canada's actual rise in temperature is not due to the actual effects that Canadians impose on ourselves.
No, it's due to the pollution as a whole globally. But we still are the ones that feel it
specifically
the most.
From the United States and China.
That's not true.
Are our largest effectors.
That's not true.
It is true.
It's not true.
It is true.
It's not true.
It is true.
It's not true.
All right. Well, proof.
The biggest polluter isn't China. It's somewhere else in like Asia, but it's not China.
It's China or India?
It might be India. It's not China though.
Well, China's pretty up there.
But yes, I'm not saying that Canada is the people who pollute the most, but as the country who feels it the most, we need to do all we can to try and reduce pollution because we don't control the rest of the world.
Okay, so then why didn't his climate emergency actually pertain anything in forms of legislation in order to actually combat the problem?
Because he needs everybody on board with him. This was something to bring Canada together as a whole. Because right now, every single government is saying, oh, we should only do this. We should do this instead. We should, like, every single provincial government is trying to handle climate change differently.
As is their prerogative.
If we bring everybody together and make it aware that climate change is a national emergency, no government can slack off anymore. Everybody has to acknowledge it. Everybody has to do their part to meet the Paris Treaty Agreement, which hasn't been the case in the past. So this is him being like, okay, this is a real issue. We need to work towards this. Everybody who...
Catherine McKenna.
Okay, yes, that's fair. That's very fair. But him as in his...
I'm pretty sure he doesn't care.
His little party is what I mean when I refer to he. I refer to Ford's government too when Ford doesn't control everything. But he basically is just like, we all need to focus on this. We all need to band together to do this because there's some provinces that are slacking off. And if you're slacking off, you're not going to meet the Paris Treaty Agreement. You're not going to do what you're supposed to do. And if you declare a national emergency, it kind of sets the field for legislations to be passed. And since then, they have been passed. Plastic has been banned from Canada. They've started to do things like this since he's declared it a national emergency. So sure,
well, it's not banned yet.
No, but
it would be banned if he was reelected, though.
It's not. Well, no, they've. Well, I guess the other government could come in and like.
It's been tabled.
It hasn't. It passed. It passed.
When?
It passed late June. I have the government Justin Trudeau thing right here.
Oh.
Yeah, they actually banned single-use plastic. It hasn't been put in place yet, but they want to do it in 2021. So it has been passed. So this legislation, this environmental, don't judge my accent.
Legislation.
This environmental national emergency, well, it didn't come with any policies at the beginning. It laid out the table for policies to be set, which, as you've seen, they've banned single-use plastic by 2021. They're trying. Loved
that spot piece of Justin Trudeau at a pizza. Or with
that was bad PR. That has nothing to do with this argument, though.
No, but it was great.
No, he wasn't at pizza. He was in his conference room.
Oh, with pizza.
And they had ordered pizza.
Best marketing they've ever got. Didn't even have to pay for it.
And it was like, this was days after they passed the single-use plastic thing. This is why it was a big deal, because they passed it, and then like 3 days later on Twitter, he posted a photo of him in a boardroom with pizza and just like a pile of plastic cutlery. Which, I mean...
Single-use plastics.
Not his fault. Or also, there was also another part when he was in, like, a conference. They were asking him what he would do, what he's doing with his family to already reduce plastic. And have you seen this clip?
It's awful.
Oh, my God. He freezes, has no idea what he's going to say, and then stumbles for about 15 minutes to get out the words, we use... Okay, 50 seconds, not 15 minutes. But he struggles to use the words, well, you see, like, to...
reusable straws,
to declare... for us to like not use water bottles, we actually use plastic. I mean, no, we don't. We use paper water bottles. That's what he said.
Does he actually say paper water bottles?
He like the paper box ones.
Oh my god.
That's what he says, and he says it almost. I mean,
all you had to say was reusable straws and reusable
honestly,
bottles.
Reusable water bottles, but he freezes, and you think his PRs would like rep him for this question since he declared. Was this before or after though? He declared it a national emergency.
I think after.
After. So you think after he's declared it,
because single-use plastics came after, right?
The discussion came a bit before, but they didn't pass it until after. So it depends. But yeah, he's not the smartest when it comes to the whole global change issue.
So obviously he's like not the person in charge here.
No, he never has been.
No, he's really not. So you can either vote for someone who's obviously just a boob and not in charge,
or somebody who's going to be controlled by another boob. Why do we always get into the whole political propaganda?
Slash and burn.
No, but I think we both agree though that there's no question that we are feeling the
climate change is important, people. That is not.
Well, we may debate in whether or not it is a national emergency. I think the one thing that we do agree with is that it's a struggle.
Yeah.
There's so many things that are happening right now that's like awful. But Canada, even though we aren't the biggest polluters
by any stretch of the imagination, the amount of carbon emissions that Canada produces in comparison to the United States is nominal.
Yes, but we are massive consumers.
Yes.
As a country, we are awful with consuming. It's horrible.
All right. Read us the stats. Yeah.
Can I read you this?
Yes,
okay.
Yes.
So you already know this because we decided to do this podcast today because I've been complaining about this statistic for the past 3 hours, probably, would you say? But a new study was done by the Global Footprint Network, and it basically shows what they call country overshoot days. So what they do is they compile statistics with how much natural resources the globe can create in a year and how many resources we use. So it was shown that the globe used 1 year worth of resources in less than 7 months. But through the study, they also showed which countries consume the most per capita. So not obviously as a whole. Obviously Canada doesn't spend more than more populated countries, but they calculate how much you spent within your country. And Canada was ranked as one of the worst consumers worldwide. They ranked in 6 out of the entire globe. And if the entire world lived like Canada, we would burn through 1 year of resources in 2 months.
I think I read the statistics and I think it's a little bit gloom and doom.
I mean, it's not gloom and doom. It's just shown how much Canada wastes.
There's a few things. First of all, our climate has a lot to do with that. Our actual geographic location on the planet and the large dispersion and small dilution of...
I mean, this isn't just like gas. This is trees. This is food. Fish.
Yeah, we consume a lot.
We do.
Because it's freaking cold.
So we eat fish because it's cold?
Yeah.
We waste a lot of food as a country.
Well, we're also a bit spoiled.
We consume a lot that we don't need to. I'm not denying, for example, gas. Yes, we use a lot more gas because we have to drive places because we're very spread out. I'm not denying that, but we are a very wasteful society. So, I mean, this national emergency climate change plan will help us with that. Even though we're not consuming the most, we're consuming a lot, and we can diminish that. And it's very accurate that we can do that. We're awful.
So while and also just to point out, while yes, Canada is one of the largest consumers per capita of goods, proportionally, when you actually spread that out into other populations around the world, our actual footprint is
I already said this.
Nominal.
Yes, but
nominal.
If every country thought that way, nothing would change. Every country is nominal, you'll have to work all together.
Well, the countries with literally 1 billion people.
Okay,
are not
but for example, if just America was okay, this is a national emergency, and they stopped producing their changes, yeah, it would make a little bit of a difference, but the entire world is still wasting. You need the entire world to work together. And Canada, it makes sense. We're feeling climate change a lot. We're awful consumers. We can do our part. It's not that hard. Don't use straws. Don't waste food.
Fair
Stuff
enough.
like that. It's easy. It's simple. We can do it. And Doug Ford being well, we've done our fair share isn't the best optimistic view to look at.
Fair enough. So what we need from Doug Ford is more virtue signaling.
Well, we just need him to agree that it's an emergency, which he has by law. So it's fine.
It's been mandated. All right. So at this point, we've heard some opinions. Is it a ploy for cheap political points, or is it a justified outlook on the forecast for 2020, 2021, and 2022? What do you think? You can let us know. You can either leave a comment if you're listening on tipsytheory.com. You can leave a comment in the comment section below, or you can send us an email to alicia@tipsytheory.com, and you can let us know what your thoughts are. If you have anything,
I like how you say that like people know how to spell my name.
ALLYSHA.
I was named weirdly. My mom actually spelled my name wrong on my birth certificate. She wanted one L, but then she accidentally spelled it with two, and it was too late.
And here we are. You can also go to the contact page, and you can send us a note if there's anything that you would like to hear on our podcast. So if there are certain things that you'd like us to cover, whether for debate date or for the more you know, then you can send us your requests, and we will answer them, or we will talk about them on our podcast.
Also, one thing else that I wanted to bring up,
Okay.
which is related to podcasts,
Okay.
is conspiracy theories.
Yes. So if we want to start a show called Conspiracy Theory.
Well, don't trademark it. We have no idea what we want to call it yet. But
the TDL name at the moment is Conspiracy Theory. And if you have conspiracy theories that you would like us,
or if you would just like to listen to it, because I am obsessed with these kind of theories, but I don't know if everybody else will be.
So if you want to hear about conspiracy theories, then let us know. You can leave a comment in the post below, or you can head on over to the contact page and send us a note about your thoughts or any conspiracy theories that you would like to know more about.
Maybe you want to know if Reagan killed the birds and if the birds work for the bourgeoisie.
They don't, but please let us know. Also,
I feel like our audience is too old to get that reference.
Go head on over to iTunes, and if you're on iTunes, Spotify, leave us a nice review. If you enjoy our content, you enjoy listening to us, you can leave a review. It really helps us out a lot, and we'd greatly appreciate it. Before we end this episode, I'd like to thank our sponsor, Groundhog Marketing Automation for WordPress. If you are looking to start a business, build a business, grow a business that you already have, then marketing automation needs to be a crucial part of your business plan. You can use marketing automation and email marketing to communicate with your subscribers easier, build a list and create a tribe, allowing you to maximize your revenue and sales. So you can head on over to groundhogg.io to learn more about how you can use their free tools in order to maximize your growth. Thank you so much, and we will see you next time.
Cue the outro music.